Tom, I can't read your last, Tom Murray, is it? Williams?
Sir.
Did you get that right? No?
Yes.
Computer
Honey.
comment? Okay. Is that right, Murray?
Lori, yes, sir. Thank you, members of the council. I have something I would like to go ahead and read. I'd be remiss if I didn't address a statement that you made, Mr. Kelley, and it actually saddens me that you think that New Hampshire has a gold standard election, and I don't fault you for that, but I hope you listen to my words, and I will get specifically to the questions, and it's unfortunate that you believe that, because that is fundamentally false. That's an inaccurate, false fact. But I will get to that, sir.
And I will respond to your
I
allegations.
hope so. I want to open the dialogue, so, because I think it's really important. But we're here to speak to the appointment of Miss Ann Edwards. So, my name is Tom Murray. I'd like to start by reading a quote from Justice William O. Douglas, who is the longest serving justice in the history of the Supreme Court. Since when have we Americans been expected to bow submissively to the authority and speak awe and reverence to those who represent us? The constitutional theory is that we, the people, are the sovereigns. The state and federal officials only are agents. We, who have the final word, can speak softly or angrily. We can seek to challenge and annoy, and we need not stay docile and quiet. It is with that similar emotion that I am here today to express my strong opposition to the nomination of Ann Edwards to the Superior Court, as I believe her record and actions disqualify her from serving in such a position of power and responsibility. As a concerned citizen, I believe it is my duty to voice all my concerns about this nominee, who I believe is unfit to serve as a judge. As someone who has served in a quasi-judicial capacity myself for over 8 years, I understand the importance of having judges who are committed to fairness, impartiality, and justice for all. I do not believe that Ms. Edwards meets this standard. It is why I'm urging you to vote against her nomination to Superior Court. I would like to share with you all my personal experiences with Ann Edwards that have brought me to this decision. It began with the SB 43 forensic audit. I attended these audit proceedings daily. What troubled me is witnessing firsthand a clear bias towards a political ideology and a failure to uphold the principles of fairness and impartiality that are crucial to our judicial system. Firstly, it must be stated that SB 43 was written by Senator Bob Gaida, Ken Eyring, and Dr. David Strang. I was integrally involved in the knowing and intent of the bill that was carefully written and subsequently passed by the New Hampshire legislature. To not create an appearance of impropriety, there was an emphasis due to perceived conflicts that the Secretary of State's office, the Attorney General's office, as well as the Wyndham Selectmen, would be at arm's length in the forensic audit proceedings. It was to be run by independent auditors themselves. This unfortunately fell short of the mark with Ann Edwards' biases and her engagement, daily engagement, unauthorized in my opinion, and contrary to the SB 43 bill. It is noteworthy to mention that both the Secretary of State, Bill Gardner, and Wyndham Selectmen upheld this constraint. This gives rise to perceptions that Ms. Edwards' impartiality is impaired. Specifically, Ann Edwards demonstrated a clear lack of impartiality and fairness throughout the entire audit proceedings. I'm going to give you examples. She hijacked the entire audit proceedings. The duty to hear all proceedings fairly and with patience is not a skill that Ms. Edwards possesses. From the onset, an ex parte motion was necessitated where the deletion of memory cards was to be made in violation of 52 U.S. Code 20701, which is the retention and preservation of records. It started with the venue selection. Knowingly selected an improperly equipped location that could not handle the technological standpoint for the 24/7 camera security that was required. This demonstrated a lack of professional competence and a lack of administrative responsibility. And moreover, the lack of the 24/7 cameras further eroded the public trust. Subsequently, this made national news. While in the late evening, when the cameras were finally set up to live stream, Miss Edwards herself was caught entering the room in the late hours where the sealed ballots were supposedly secured. Then, without explanation, the video feed was suddenly cut. You can only imagine the lack of transparency and outrage by the public. A judge must be expected to constant public scrutiny and accept freely and willingly the restrictions that might be viewed as burdensome by the ordinary citizen. After the public trust was further violated, Mrs. Edwards' response was to call a media station to explain her misconduct and create her own narrative after being caught on camera. That is not the appropriate response. She demonstrated a disregard for civil rights and the protections under the New Hampshire Constitution. Ms. Edwards' behavior was unacceptable for someone who holds power to make decisions that impact the lives of so many individuals throughout the state of New Hampshire. Ms. Edwards' arrogance and disdain for the average citizen during the process was on full display, and it was targeted to me personally as well. When the chain of custody records, by way of example, were incorrectly presented, I raised my hand. I was quickly silenced by Ms. Edwards. From that point forward, she put an arduous task independently of herself to ask questions that became very burdensome to get to the core root problem that the forensic audit sought to do, and it didn't. It did not. She covered for Nicholas Chau-Yin's incompetence, demonstrating the lack of professional competence on her behalf. Nicholas Chau-Yin should have been terminated. Instead, she relocated him to a different department. Secretary of State Bill Gardner, as well as Senator Gaida, on multiple occasions had to come in to the audit proceedings and discuss these issues with Ms. Edwards. And this was all recorded on tape. Additionally, Ann Edwards has exhibited questionable ethical behavior, including conflicts of interest and lack of transparency in her decision-making. These actions call into question her ability to serve with integrity and honor, and ultimately undermine the public trust in the judicial system. Given these concerns, I'm urging you not to support Ann Edwards' nomination, and instead appoint someone who has demonstrated commitment to upholding the New Hampshire Constitution and the principles of justice, fairness, and integrity. Respectfully speaking.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John?
If I may, sir, I would just like to take a moment to explain to Mr. Kenny, because I think you need to hear this.
And I'm going to respond.
I hope you do. Here's why New Hampshire did not have a gold standard election. It starts with the Constitution that you all have raised your right hand and sworn an oath to protect. As Part 1, Article 1, I'm born equally free. I have a bill of right in the Bill of Rights to a free and fair election. I did not receive a free and fair election in Whittier. And many of the people throughout New Hampshire also did not receive a free and fair election. I'm forced at this point in time to actually file a federal lawsuit. I have better things to do, ladies and gentlemen, than to spend my time securing my rights. But nonetheless, that's what I'm forced to do if I want to have a free and fair election. The Attorney General's office has had a second complaint from the 2022 primary election, which again repeated many of the 130 violations of election procedures as window. And by the way, sir, respectfully, it is not just Windham. Sandown, Merriman, Manchester's Ward 10, Salem. I can go on and I can show you what happened. Our constitutional rights were abridged. There was a trespass on the people of New Hampshire. What happened was House Bill 1266 was passed, which unconstitutionally expanded absentee voting. Absentee voting is only for people with physical disabilities and people that are not going to be in their ward or city or town to vote. That did not happen.
Keep this to Ann Edwards, if you would, please.
Well, I think it's relevant to Ann Edwards, sir, with all due respect, because this is what happened in 2020, mainly because of Mrs. Edwards' lack of integrity and lack to do a full investigation on the forensic audit. So I'm just going to give you one example. Take Sandown for
Quickly, because
example.
you've had 10 minutes.
We had an overvote issue. It's in the SB 43 conclusions report. It's in the letter from January 7, 2021, the joint letter from Bill Gardner and the Attorney General, John Fromell. In that report, it showed if you went ahead and you voted for 4 Republicans, we had to pick 4, and you folded that absentee ballot, that line went through the Democrat candidate. Now, anybody that knows anything about ballot rotation knows that in Windham, we happen to be the 33% that had Republicans in the right-hand column. In Sandown, they were part of the 33% that had Democrats in the right-hand column. And the opposite happened. Exact same tally, pick 4, and Jess Edwards was in the same target location that Christy St. Laurent was. Therefore, Jess Edwards received phantom votes. And moreover, that fold going through his target oval, that voided Democrats. That disenfranchised every Democrat voter in the town of Sandown.
Wrap it up, and then Councilor Kenny will respond. A lot more people who need to talk.
I'll respond.
And with that said, in the absentee ballots that weren't properly done, and I'm wrapping it up in consideration of the time, but Mr. Kenny, with all due respect, I would love to have a conversation with you because I have spent more time on this election than anybody other than perhaps Mr. Iring in this state. I know more about elections in the 2020 election, and believe me, it wasn't something that I sought out to see.
Appreciate you doing all the work that you did, because we want to make our elections fair.
They're not.
Transparent. I have to say this, as someone who grew up in the state, grew up in a small town, who has citizens around me who I respect and admire, who are on the supervisor checklist, who count each ballot when they have to, or a recount, or when they count it when the machines weren't there. I trust those citizens to count my votes when I was running for office, and other citizens who ran. I had the most respect that they were doing the right thing. Okay, in 2018, when I was washed out of Hanover by college students who were basically voting from out of state because they could use the domicile law to do that, I didn't complain. That was the system, that was the process. Now, as far as what we currently have in place, can we make it better? Yeah, of course we can. And I agree with you on absentee ballots. We need to shore that thing up.
We're not following the current Constitution.
But what I'm saying is that give your citizens some credit who step up and count these
I
ballots.
give them no credit, sir, and here's why. Read the complaint
This
that I
is
sent to
gonna
that
be-
office. Sir, just let me make this point.
Excuse me, or I'm gonna have you removed,
Sure.
okay? The questions and the conversation is gonna go through the chair, or it isn't gonna happen. I'll give you 15 seconds to respond, and this conversation's over.
So, I would respectfully request that you get a copy of the 2022, or the 2022, December 21st complaint. Read that complaint. We did not have a free and fair election, and it's all detailed. I have yet and again disenfranchised. Tell me, trust but verify. That's what Ronald Reagan said, correct? Trust but verify. That is fundamentally inaccurate, sir.
Well, I'm not a Soviet, but I'll tell you this, I trust my citizens in my rural towns, in the district I represent, that they do the right thing.
I'll give you my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. I love the opportunity to persuade you to show you the facts. Thank you, sir.
I live in Windsor.
Thank you.